This is episode 452 of The Journey, a conversation on leadership, culture, and creativity. My name is Vidal, and today is Wednesday, the beginning of a brand new decade, January 1st, 2020. For the last few days, I've been posting on social media some of what I consider resolutions. And what I've been doing, I've been simply dissecting some of the things that we spoke on Sunday with regards of Psalm 90. The reason why I believe resolutions work is because resolutions is like faith. I think resolutions is like prayer. At the end of the day, resolutions is about the object of the resolution. Who are we placing or making the object of such a resolution? So on Sunday, one of the first resolutions that I presented throughout these last few days, based on what we spoke on Sunday, I brought the conversation, and I'm going to try to put it on the screen so we can all read it, but I brought the conversation on Psalm 90, because on Psalm 90, I believe this is a huge resolution, and Moses is the writer of this psalm. At least we believe he is the writer, Moses, the creator, the founder of the nation of Israel. And he basically says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I'm going to say that again. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. One of the most attractive things about Christianity versus any other religion is that Jesus is the object of everything that we do, everything that we believe, everything that we engage when it comes to Christianity. So when Moses speaks of the teachability, when Moses speaks of the need for bringing wisdom into our days, that we can do and count our days in the context of wisdom, I'm more than convinced that the attractiveness of Christianity is not a successful life, although I'm all for success. The attractiveness of Christianity is not simply that we're going to learn from experience and experience that has been evaluated, experience that help us to be shaped into the image of Jesus. All of those things count, but the beauty of Christianity is that every single thing that the Bible describes, every single thing that the Bible portrays and presents to us, it has to do with the person of Jesus. So as much as I want us to be a generation of teachability, as much as it's needed for us to be a generation who learns from previous experiences, positive or negative, I believe Christianity is about the character of Jesus, it's about the person of Jesus versus just the improvement or the better version of ourselves. And I'm saying all this because when Moses speaks of us becoming teachable versus, again, prideful versus all-knowing versus I'm not going to learn from anybody, I'm not going to seek any counsel, I believe that Moses in the entire Bible is describing the person of Jesus more than anyone else. I believe the Bible is describing the person and the character of the one who, by the fact that we just celebrated a few days ago, Christmas, the fact that Paul says in Philippians chapter 2 that he detaches, that he comes and dwells among us, that he leaves the heavenlies and comes and dwells among us, is that process that he becomes obedient, he becomes teachable, he becomes shapeable by the Father, by the agenda of the Father in his life. So again, as I think of this brand new year, as much as, again, we need a generation of men and women who are willing to learn, who are willing to be shaped, who are willing to learn from previous evaluated experiences, I want to make sure that we close the gap between that sense of drive, between that sense of again eagerness and willingness, and I think nothing wrong with those things for us to become teachable and shapeable. I really believe the freedom is that today we can choose to see Jesus as the model, as the person that has been teachable and was teachable and model teachability for us. Now, the beauty of this teachability, again, for Jesus is that he had a purpose, a reason for that teachability. So when Moses describes this issue of numbering our days with teachability, for us, Jesus, again, coming back to Jesus, since he is the reason why we do what we do, is the concept that in his teachability, Jesus is exposing his humanity. I mean, if he is a person that he needed to be within the core or within the nucleus of a family, and we believe that he was a person that he needed to learn how to speak, he needed to learn within his humanity how to walk, he needed to learn how to make decisions, he embraced a worldview, he was limited by Jewish culture, and yet we find the transcendent at the same time. So when the Bible describes that we need to number our days, we have a chronology for the life of Jesus. And the beauty of the boundaries of Jesus, the beauty of, again, his chronology and the way that he portrays these things for us is nothing else but the reminder that in his limitations, so to speak, and the way that he limited himself is where we find Jesus become or receive or inherit by the Father the name that is above every other name. So when we talk about numbering our days in a manner that we can gain, that we may gain wisdom, a heart of wisdom, is a reflection of the Jewish carpenter that chooses to limit himself for the sake of the greater good, for the sake of exposing the beauty and the bigness of his own self, of his own character in the context of humility. Now, I believe this is a huge message that we must embrace for this beautiful 2020. I think there's a message that becomes and continues to be relevant because typically we think in opposite direction. We believe that progress and growth is exactly about gaining and is about obtaining power and influence. And I'm obviously not against any of those things, but I believe that the influence, the growth, the gaining, it has to do with losing. It has to do with yielding. It has to do with meekness and servanthood. And ultimately, here's what I will say to us on a beautiful Wednesday morning in the beginning of a brand new decade. This is why resolutions work, because in Moses' case, in the scripture's case, in Jesus' case, the teachability, the concept of numbering the days and having gain, it has to do with the object, and the object is wisdom. So what I want to do as we finish our time together, I want to read for us what Dr. Bob Utley describes and presents when it comes to the concept of wisdom and when it comes to specifically wisdom literature, because again, we're speaking of the scriptures, we're speaking of the Bible. And on his commentary, on his website, on the section that has to do with the description of wisdom literature and what wisdom is, he describes, Dr. Bob says that it is basically a how-to, this wisdom literature, how to focus on happiness and success, how to focus on the understanding of succeeding in life. And it is primarily individual in its focus. It is based, and then he's going to give us a list of 3 things, which I believe Jesus is going to embody, and I believe is part of the resolution that it was in the purpose and the heart of Jesus being resolved, which again is something that needs to be imputed, given to us. It needs to be put into our hearts. It is the experience of previous generations. Jesus modeled this for us tremendously. He obviously was discipled by his parents, was taught and trained by leadership and the synagogue. I mean, this is the guy that was learning from the law, and he not only fulfilled the law, but he learned the law. He came into the place where he was teachable, and he modeled those things for us. So it's the experience of previous generations. It is the cause and effect relationships in life. Jesus, oh my goodness, he took huge risk by relating to individuals that eventually are going to betray him, they're going to abandon him. Is the concept of making relationships means to an end. And in this case, this is a message that needs to be heard today like never before, versus making idols of relationships. We cannot just simply relate to people out of the need that we have for one another, but it has to be something that takes us into the concept of wisdom. In other words, we have to be careful who we choose, how do we relate, how do we open up, how do we expose, how do we engage, and obviously for singles, for married people, that is applicable across the entire spectrum. And then the last thing is that he says that trusting in God has rewards. Wisdom is about understanding that God loved us so much. I mean, this part of wisdom, God loved us so much that he is going to allow us to experience the reality of life. And this is important because Dr. Bob is going to quote on his commentary Deuteronomy 27 through 29, which has to do basically with that understanding of the blessing and cursing that the Bible presents, that God promises that he's going to do, and he's going to exercise for those who either obey or disobey. In this case, again, the beauty of the gospel and the beauty of wisdom is that Jesus exemplifies this by he became the recipient of that vengeance, of that consequences of sin. And the Bible describes that the one who knew no sin for our sake became sin. And in Jesus, I mean, this is why resolutions work, because if Jesus is the object of our resolution, if Jesus is the model on how to be resolved, if Jesus is the person that we follow as an example on how to make decisions and how to see wisdom, not necessarily just as the absence of foolishness, but wisdom as the person, the character, the worldview of Jesus, is that he takes on the curses that Deuteronomy mentions in chapters 27, 28, but then Jesus makes us the recipient, the co-heirs, the co-inherited individuals, that we inherited the blessings, that for us the blessing is simply the character and the person of Jesus given to us. I pray, I desire, I really hope that you guys have a beautiful, wonderful, blessed, full of wisdom 2020. This brand new decade, this brand new experience hopefully helps us to move and to learn and to grow into the image, into the object of that resolution, which is the character and the person of Jesus. My name is Vidal, and I want to thank you so much for allowing me to engage with you on a beautiful year and a beautiful experience and the newness of life. And I pray for God's blessing upon you. Thank you so much.